plan for those? Do we acquire the lands? Do we just sit and ask the residents to give up their lands? What is the plan for that area? And your PS had described to me quite pleasantly, Mr. Cummins, I am grateful to you, about the wells. We have a few areas where there's flooding when it does rain. And as he explained to me, the issue in part was the wells and the condition of the wells. I want to have an update on that as well.
PS Cummins will respond to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon again, Madam Chair. We have identified a number of roads in St. Philip for the CAF program, but that will not be starting in April. It's probably going to start in the second quarter of the financial year. But to address the question of private roads, this is primarily in situations where persons live off of main roads, where you may have persons who are renting, and as we use the materials from our Mill and Pave program to allow those persons who live along those what we call urban or rural tracks to have all-weather roads. Sometimes that's where the challenge, and I think that's the challenge that you are having with respect to getting permission from the landowners. The acquisition process takes a very long time, so it's always better if the landowners can agree to have the roads, to have the tracks upgraded and provide a better all-weather surface. St. Philip is a challenge because, as you know, St. Philip probably, going back in the history, St. Philip and St. Lucie were really the two major landowning parishes in Barbados in the early days, and that still continues. And you may have persons who are family members or some who are paying rent living on lands, but they do not necessarily have a quote-unquote, I would say a classified road, because the tracks, I normally refer to them as unclassified roads based on the road classification order. But suffice it to say, in those situations, as we are continuing with our milling and paving program, we will have a significant amount of material, and it may be necessary for us. I know I did some visits with you, and you pointed out to me some areas where there were challenges. The greatest challenge is going to come in the agricultural subdivisions, because those roads are private, and they're very much for the use of the residents of those agricultural subdivisions. But the ministry is willing to work with you, Madam Chair, to assist and to see how best we can improve those surfaces. And if you can also do, I know you're doing a significant amount, if you can do a bit more PR on the ground and get the landowners to agree, then that will make our jobs a lot easier. With respect to the cleaning of wells, that's the program that is ongoing. When we visited, we saw a number of wells in St. Philip that have not been cleaned for a long time. Subsequent to that visit, a number of them have been assigned. But as Minister Cattle alluded, and this is one of the challenges that we are faced with in Barbados, where there is a limited number of well diggers, we do plan to have discussions with the BVTB and TVET, which are agencies of the Ministry of Education, to see how best we can have persons trained in the skill of well digging. I know that it is hard work, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be very lucrative given the number of wells that we have identified and the number of wells to be cleaned. So we are in tune with the challenges that you have in St. Philip North. We've identified a number of those roads, especially under the CAF program, and I do expect that we can start towards the end of the second quarter of the financial year, which will be more like September, October.
Mr. Cummins, there are some urgent areas by, what's that, St. Catherine's area where the bridge has broken on both ends,
Yes.
as well as going into Supers. I'm not sure if they can wait on the CAF program, if we could do something in the meantime for those particular areas. I am told that a lady with a car more or less fell off the side of the road and the car had to be lifted out in that St. Catherine's Wiltshires area. So if something could be done relatively urgently, I would appreciate it.
We will, ma'am. St. Catherine's Wiltshires, as you just said, is treacherous, and I'm sure we will have to make an intervention there, more than likely temporary, certainly before the coming rainy season, because both the road edges on both sides, there's significant undermining of those road edges. So we will definitely have to make an intervention there. And Super is that road you spoke of going into Fortescue, which was built some years ago when the original road had collapsed. That's another area that we will also need to pay some significant attention to. And I think that may be a part of the Scotland District. We'll have to do some research and double check.
And the residents are complaining, like Whitehill, that there's only one entrance in and one entrance out. That falls into St. John as well, so that is creating some concern for the residents there. But we can move on. Honorable Leader of the Opposition. Thank you, Mr. Cummins.
You're welcome, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Since I'll take lead from you, since you became somewhat parochial, of course you're concerned about your constituency, as you rightly ought to be. You don't want to be left out. You don't want to be left out. You don't want St. Philip North residents, constituents to be left out.
Not at all.
Not at all. So I'll take the lead from you and be a little bit parochial before I address perhaps two further questions. I want to thank this minister for the attention that the department under his portfolio, his ministry paid to the problem that existed at Passage Road. It took a little while to be fixed, but I gave Minister a call, and he readily said to me that he would have it acted on. It has been acted on. I saw it featured in the news media this week. This was an outstanding problem, I think, caused initially by some works of the Barbados Water Authority, and serious, dangerous excavated area left uncovered for quite a while. But has been seen to, and I thank him for that. That is at Inner Passage Road, Passage View. And I thank the minister and his team for that. There is also an ongoing drainage problem at Hinesbury Road, to which I also drew the minister's attention. He's promised action. And there has been some initial action, though it has now been stalled for a little while. I saw a middle page spread, I think, yesterday or the day before in the news media on that big middle page spread, I think, in one of the dailies, highlighting the ongoing problem. So I invite the minister to give renewed attention to that, to see what has caused the halt in the works. I think it may have been partly due to the lockdown period we were going through, but certainly that problem exists. It is not only a nuisance to the residents of Hinesbury Road, it is actually a serious public health threat, if only on a localized basis. Again, I ask for attention to be paid to the drainage situation at Bridge Gap. My political neighbor, the honourable member for St. Michael Northwest, would be aware of this. The seriously deep open drains are on the St. Michael West side, but they constitute a very real danger to persons traversing there, whether it is motorists or pedestrians, and that would constitute a danger to his people as well, or anybody passing. Should have talked about that before. There are differing opinions as to how it ought to be handled, but I believe it does expose people to serious risk, and those with an engineering understanding of these matters would know best how it ought to be treated. So I just want to highlight it again. The other area is just outside on the border of St. Michael West. It passes what it has to do with the city. It also has to do with St. Michael South Central. And this is the water course that comes out of the country, passes through the area of the proposed botanical gardens, comes through the Prison Gully, comes into Lower Ridge Road and Hinesbury Road, and goes through just outside the Weymouth Pass to where there is this project, I think, to engage the entrepreneurial interests of young people. There's some kiosk stalls, whatever they're called, vending facilities being established. My concern is, and I hope that some kind of engineering studies have been done to ensure that there is no impediment posed to the water course. That is an area historically has been given to serious flooding. All the water comes out of rural Barbados, heading towards the wharf and the ocean, the Greenwich and the ocean, and it passes through there. I'm old enough to remember 1970 flood, when this was a major disaster area. I've never seen water on land in Barbados that high before or since, and there was a tragic loss of 2 lives back then. So I hope that nothing is being done in the construction of the project. I'm not objecting to the construction of the project, implementation of the project. My concern is that the appropriate studies would have been done to ensure that when the work is finished, facilities are available, that nothing has been done in that legitimate attempt to impede the flow of water through that area, and then we have serious other problems. Beyond those things, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask the Minister to the extent to which she's satisfied with the way the TAP program has been functioning, especially as it relates to the interests of the operators, the private vehicle public service operators. There are 2 sides to this equation, of course, and you may be satisfied with how it operates in terms of how it facilitates the transport authority in moving people in Barbados. But then there's the interest of the private operators, the Alliance of Owners of Public Transport. Their interests must be taken into consideration. Is the Minister happy the way that program has functioned? These private operators have contributed significantly to moving the commuting public in Barbados, especially in the last 10, 15 years, in significant numbers when the Transport Board was not in a position to properly do it. 80, 90% perhaps of the commuting public is using private sector operated vehicles. Now we've drawn some of them into the TAP arrangements. Are we satisfied that it is working properly in their interests? And can we really justify the 12 or 12.5% takings by government from these operators or the proceeds derived from the operations? How can we justify, and can we properly do so, that 12 or 12.5%? These guys have problems with the high costs, at least that's what they said to me when I met with them, problems with the high cost of insurance. Of course, the insurance arrangements are private arrangements, but certainly government must be in a position to use its influence to ensure that insurance rates charged these people for operating 5-figure insurance rates are not unjustly high. There are problems with the fuel tax introduced by this government. There are problems with other taxes, transfer tax, which I think has multiplied, 1,000%. And really, there are some concerns which I think legitimately they have. They must get the opportunity to air them to the extent that this minister is aware of these issues since he's new to the job. I wonder if he and the team are satisfied with that particular program. And then my second question, Madam, has to do with the electric buses. Oh, they look nice, and we see a lot of them running on our roads. And almost like the Prime Minister did, we are tempted to say, we're lost. But my question is the appropriateness of those buses to Barbados. And I'm not in a position to say one way or the other. What I do know is that in hearing from a few drivers, what they have said is that these buses are good buses, but they're not appropriate for use here in our road context. I don't know the extent to which that issue is an issue for the Ministry of Transport and Works. The question I have beyond that has to do with the ownership. Clarify for me the ownership of these buses. Are they Barbados state-owned? Are they owned in some partnership arrangement with some private entity? And what is the level of indebtedness which now exists for the Barbados taxpayers with respect to these buses?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I'll try to respond to your questions, concerns in the order that you raised them. Regarding the drainage problem at Hinesbury Road, you're referring effectively to Greenwich Road. That is where we are trying to create a box drain connected into the Headley drain to allow it to outflow onwards. The challenge that the residents had in Greenwich Road had to do with the fact that, again, like you said, the water course, all the water coming down, and then the area will be flooded. We completed phase 1 of the project, and we are now set to conclude phase 2 of that project by the end of this month, March 31. The crews are on site as I speak to you. They have been working. We did have a setback, and you're quite right. During COVID, for the 4 weeks during the month, we didn't have any staff on board because of the requirements for persons to practice their required health and safety for us to reduce the spread of the pandemic throughout Barbados. But I can assure you that the team is there. They're working hard to execute the completion of those works as requested. But like I said, phase 1 has been completed, and we're going through there with speed. With respect to your concern at the Bridge Gap, the team would have visited the ministry's team. I was part of the tour as well. We went to Bridge Gap. We explored multiple options. The issue is even covering the drain. We were advised against that, again, because of the water that comes upstream. But however, we are looking at a plan to have handrails within that area for the safety and security of residents and certainly motorists who traverse that area. We are also addressing some drainage works upstream to ease some of the flow of water that will come through to the Bridge Gap area. And we're pretty much working on that as I speak to you. There are some other plans that we have to institute, including digging new wells and also creating what we call pond areas to capture some of the water to reduce the flow. Because that's the challenge in Barbados. When there's significant rainfall, if you don't trap the water upstream, it flows all the way downstream straight into the ocean. And as we are becoming even a scarcer water society, we have to take action to prevent what we currently have in those low-lying areas. The water course situation at Weymouth, I believe that's been undertaken by another government agency. I'm not at will to speak to that at this point, but I can assure you that we would have been, the ministry and particularly the drainage unit, would have been consulted on such a project. So I don't see there to be a major issue there. In respect of the TAP program and whether I'm satisfied, yes, I'm very satisfied. In my initial remarks, I made the point that the transport augmentation program, which was implemented long before I became minister, and that this government implemented, was designed to enable the carrying capacity of the transport board, and is done exactly as it was intended to do. And I will also ask the chief operating officer of the transport board to speak to this matter as well. But I am very, very satisfied. The 12.5% TAP commission that is paid, we have terminals to maintain. We've just not so long ago, the Constitutional River Terminal. We're going to bring the operators at PSV operators at Spikestown into the terminal. We're also building out the Cheapside facility, and it's only 12.5%. The reality, as I've said to you before, that the public transport sector is worth $200 million. People don't stay in business if they're not making money. I know that because of the pandemic, they may have had a setback, like most businesses and the government in Barbados, particularly with its revenue position. But notwithstanding that, this government probably initiated a measure And that measure was to suspend the 12.5% tap rate for about 6 months. Okay? I should also tell you that the board of the board of directors of the Transport Board, they meet with the tap operators, and I'm sure Mrs. Holder will go into details about that on a regular basis. I've had an opportunity to meet with the operators in TAP as well. They had some concerns with respect to timeliness of payment. I believe we put those behind us and we paid them. There are also other concerns that we're working with them. And what we're doing is that even as they move to an electric fleet, because some operators indicated to us that they want to move into the realm of electric buses. And we applaud them for that. And that we had meetings with two entities who would have electric units in Barbados. And we're going to make the Fairchild Street terminal available. They will, of course, pay their own electric bill, but we are going to have a bay with the charging station that they will install and that they will pay for, but just the ease of operating their unit, so that they don't have to leave, for example, Fairchild Street and go maybe to their company base to recharge their units. And that's what we're doing. In respect to and I may also add, lest we forget, that the TAP operators, like the PSV operators, benefited from a substantial increase in bus fare. They did. And that's why I can tell you off the top, it's a $200 million business. I've also met with the operators, PSB operators. We've had the discussions with them. And I can also tell you that they're very much on board with our cashless initiative. And they really want to come on board with that program. So I don't think there are major issues in that respect. And certainly I plan to meet with them. I believe I'm going to meet with one entity again next week, subject to correction, but I think it's in the calendar for next week. And we will meet with them and we will listen to them, as I always do. As I said, this ministry will be transparent. We're going to be empathetic and we're going to be sensitive. And that's what we're going to do. And we're doing that. In respect of the electric buses and the question as to the appropriateness of the buses, I can tell you, as a former chairman of the Transport Board, not in this last going down, but before, whenever we are speccing the purchase of buses, there's a very long procedure. You go through, you spec the bus, you look at the different angles, you check everything. It's a very long list that we go through. And we do that because we have to not only protect the integrity of our roadways, but we also have to protect the integrity of the bus, because when you buy a bus, that's a major transaction. In respect of the electric buses, they're working well. We don't have any problems. I don't know who would say that they're inappropriate, but what I can tell you that I pretty much can tell you that they are very appropriate for this tropical landscape. I was part of a delegation along with and forgive me for referring to names, but they were part of the delegation. The person who is now the chairman of the Transport Board was an engineering background, and also the Ministry of Transport and Works workshop manager. We journeyed to 2 locations to spec the buses to ensure that they conform and to ensure that all the charging and all the required electrification and electrical infrastructure that were required, that we were on course. And I can tell you, heart on hand, that we procured the buses, we brought them to Barbados, we had electrical charging infrastructure in place, the buses are being charged, and they are saving us a substantial amount of money. Even though we're paying for electricity on diesel, we have reduced our diesel and overall operating cost per bus, and that is a fact. And I think they're very appropriate, which informed the decision, the government's decision, to procure an additional 14 buses, and that's the truth. And they're working well, and like I said, they continue to grace the roadways of Barbados, and that's a fact. In respect of whether we have debt for the buses, there's no debt. The government of Barbados made provision for the Transport Board to fund these buses. The government set aside $50 million, I think it's correct, yes, 50? $45 million, stand corrected, $45 million to fund the purchase, including the electrical infrastructure. We delivered the buses, the first set of buses on time. We delivered all the electrical infrastructure on time and within the required budget. And I can tell you, as a Barbadian, I'm very proud, I'm very happy that those persons who form part of the subcommittee as when I returned to transport as chairman, and when I returned there, and we entrusted the committee to lead that team, led by Mrs. Linda Holder. She did an excellent job with her team. And that team included persons including the government's chief electrical engineering officer. And we have every reason as a country to feel very proud of the fine accomplishment. And I can also tell you now that even the powertrain units with the new electric engine that we put in those to help enhance fuel efficiency, they too have worked extraordinarily well and they have helped us to reduce not only the diesel bill but the parts, because at the time we were changing out brakes and brake drums every 4 to 6 weeks. When we did the first powertrain unit, we went almost 3 to 4 months, I think it was 6 months, before we even have to look at the brakes. And that tells you the remarkable story that this government has accomplished in respect of public transport. We have a long way to go. There's still a lot of stuff to go, a lot of ideas that we have on the cards to execute. But I can assure you, Leader of the Opposition, it was money well spent. And I can also tell you it saved the taxpayers a substantial amount of money. I will ask Mrs. Linda Holder, who was responsible for that project, to say a few comments.
Good evening. My name is Linda Holder. I am the Chief Operations Officer of the Transport Board. As the Minister just indicated, the electric buses that were recently purchased, the 33 electric buses that were recently purchased, they are wholly and solely owned by the government of Barbados. The government did put aside $45 million for us to do this project, and we were able to bring in those 33 buses, and the charging stations that came with them came in at a total of just over $10 million US. Then we were able to do the infrastructural works here in Barbados without running over our budget. The remaining sums is what is presently being used to purchase an additional 14 electric buses. As it relates to the appropriateness of the buses, I am not sure the basis of the comment, but I would say that the only challenge we have experienced with those buses on the roads of Barbados is related specifically to some of the road infrastructure, and those things are being addressed on a daily basis by the ministry. We've not had any breakdowns of those buses, and we've not had any sort of mechanical or electrical issues with the buses. We are also very comfortable that we were able to address a number of the issues that had been raised with us by other members of the traveling public. This is the month of the disabled, and when we did our analysis and our specifications for the buses, we engaged them as well to make sure that we would have addressed some of the concerns that they had raised. We ended up with a situation that the buses were so well received, but we created another concern where the buses were too quiet, and we're still working with the Council for the Disabled to address that. The buses came with air conditioning, kneeling technology. It came with an on-bus announcing system, special alerts for persons on board the bus to be able to indicate when the bus would be stopping, and we will be able to distinguish that from other features. We also have more cameras on board the buses, which assist us with the safety and security on those buses as well. And I will just add here that we've taken it a step further, and because of the issues related to COVID, we've added hand sanitizing dispensers on every one of those buses as well. So we've been able to address a number of the issues. The buses come with Wi-Fi technology, GPS systems to allow us to track them, and we were able to purchase software that allows us to monitor the state of charge of the buses remotely. So we are able to figure out if the bus is working appropriately and if the batteries are functioning appropriately and where those buses are located at any given point in time. I hope that I answered the questions that the Honourable Member raised on the electric buses.
Okay, honourable members, ministers, and your team, we have about 50 more minutes left and several persons ready to speak. So if you could keep your comments and questions to 3 minutes and answers as such, I would be grateful. Pardon? 50. Okay, and that applies to the next speaker as well. Honorable member for St. James North.
Thank you, Chair. First, wish to congratulate the two ministers and, on the approach they've taken and their team to their task. And like to be, in terms of parochial, in terms of my constituency, for my first comment. I know, Minister, that you have outlined a number of roads to be done throughout the country, Scotland District and other areas, highways. But St. James North, my constituency, I wish to give you the opportunity to tell the residents of my constituency what roads are being proposed to be done in this coming financial year in that constituency. From the time I became a member of Parliament 8 years ago, even before I'd been constantly writing ministers of transport and works. Not you, sir, I haven't written you yet. You were toured with me, I think in November, as well as the Honourable Member for St. John in some parts of the constituency. But there are about 17 roads in St. James North that are in a state of disrepair. I noticed that I think we had a survey a couple years ago which said that 70% of the roads in Barbados are either poor or in a bad state. And while I appreciate that, I think that some roads in St. James North are particularly bad, especially where I took you, sir, and Minister Griffith in Aston Hall. All the roads there essentially on the St. James North side are pretty poor, as well as of Rotdunda. We were all requested to name one road in our various constituencies which we will wish to be repaired, and Rotdunda is the one in St. James North. So I'll give you that opportunity, sir. Secondly, on the issue of the quality of water, we know that many pipes in Barbados are between 50 and 100 years old, and there's a need for total reconstruction and replacement, refurbishment of pipes. And St. James North hasn't escaped that in terms of quality of water, poor quality brown water in many areas. And I'm wondering if you wish to, I'm going to ask you to expand on that, sir, within certainly the constituency of St. James North. Finally, Madam Chair, wish to speak on the vexing problem of inability of residents in some parts of St. James North, some parts of Aston Hall, for instance, Clark's Road, some parts of Rotdunda, to be able to access water supply because of the Zone 1 policy. And while we understand that we have to maintain the integrity of the water supply system in Barbados, that is extremely important. I believe from an engineering viewpoint in 2021, the third decade of this century, that there are scientific possibilities to regulate and reform the Zone 1 policy position of our country and allow water in some of these various households. Some of these houses that have been present for 30, 40 years, it isn't that they are recent squatters. So, and this has implications as well too in terms of the ability to install waterborne indoor toilet facilities, again very important, and one of the policies of this government to replace pit toilets with indoor toilet facilities by 2027. I know, sir, that there's a water zonal or water zoning groundwater protection policy in place, and I'm wondering if you could speak to that as well within the context of this issue of water supply, the difficulty of the Barbados Water Authority supplying water in these Zone 1 areas. Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Well, I wouldn't be able to give you, Honorable Member, a list of all the roads that you would like done. I know you said you submitted 17, but I'm not in a position at this point in time to confirm the number of roads. But rest assured, when we commence that program, we will communicate with you. We'll be in dialogue with you, and we will let you know in advance, as I would always do, when we intend to commence roadworks in your area. In respect, I must, however, tell you that we are finalizing the Carlton to Rotundo stretch, and I think you spend a lot of time in your constituency, so you will know that. And I'm also pleased to tell you, even though you didn't ask me, that the drain at Clark's Road, this is one that connects onto the retention pond to take the water off the Ashton Hall area. We did a tour last year. I'm pleased to tell you that is 75% complete, so you'll be very happy for that. In respect of the vexing, to quote you, problems of the access to water in the Zone 1, what I would like to do now is to ask Dr. Mwanza of the Barbados Water Authority to speak to your specific concern. Dr. Mwanza.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Sorry, to the representative, Mr. Hinkson. I'm John Mwanza again, advisor to BWA. Over the last couple of weeks in February, we actually held town hall meetings to provide an update on where we are with regard to the updates to the zoning system. With regard to those persons who are currently in Zone 1, the proposed amendments speak to a partial reduction in the size of what was called Zone 1. So we now have a Zone A and Zone B encompassing parts of what was Zone 1. In Zone A, there will still be a restriction on provision of new services to people that try to develop in Zone A. That is being restricted basically only for developments related to provision of water. However, it has been recognized that there are some people who have settled in those areas who have to be addressed. The position that has been arrived at is that persons that are in Zone 1 now and who will remain in Zone A when the amendments are implemented, we will seek to provide upgraded on-site sewage systems to those residents. How that will be funded is still to be determined, and they will then be provided with water services. But the position also speaks to the fact that no additional encroachment will be allowed. And to facilitate that, the Lands and Survey Department has actually done drone surveys of those areas to ensure that we know who is there now and we know who will be encroaching going forward, and we'll be able to address the encroachments. One of the problems we've had historically is the issue of use of affidavits for people who came in later. So that issue will be addressed. and those who are now in Zone 2, when they were in Zone 1 previously, will also be provided with waterborne facilities. With regard to the discolored water problem, we recognize that is an area of concern over a large sector of the Barbados, which results from the type of mains that were used then, before the mid-70s. Those pipes didn't have a liner to protect them from the water, which is corrosive. So the only way you could address those is replace them, and the Water Authority has prepared a strategic mains replacement program for which we are seeking funding to implement. So, and we know that the area in question, especially St. Silas Hill, is one that suffers from frequent breaks. That is one of the mains that is in the prioritized list, and we'll be implementing it as soon as we have the funding available.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Michael Northwest.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I wish to congratulate both ministers along with their management team for such an outstanding and distinguished performance since taking control of the ministry. My constituents and I have some challenges with drainage across my constituency. The minister, he will be aware of some of these challenges. I wrote the minister on numerous occasions, and he is aware of these challenges that are presently existing. I have a number of drainage wells that have not been cleaned for over 10 years, and I also would like to know what plans are in place for drainage to rectify this issue. That's my first question. And I also wish to take this opportunity to publicly thank the minister on the behalf of my constituents and the constituents of St. Michael West for kindly paving Galumia Road. That is a blessing for us, and I want to thank you for that, Minister. Also, Deaconsmere Road remain incomplete. I know the process was started under the former minister last year, but as we speak, a part of Deaconsmere Road remain incomplete, and I also would like to know when the remainder of that road will be completed. That's my second question. And for the last 3 years, I have been pleading with the ministry in terms of having row humps installed across the constituency, but within various communities such as Galun, Ashton Village, Brandons, and Farm Road. I also would like to know what are the requirements of MTW in order to have row humps installed. Lord forbid, I would not like that it would take an accident to occur or a child be knocked down by a vehicle in order to achieve the installation of these row humps. So, Minister, if you could kindly let me know what I have to do to have this request honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor, Deputy Speaker. In respect of the drainage, you are quite right. We facilitated a tour with you last year. We have, this is the one leading from what I refer to as the drain commencing there from Solo, going through Deacon's Farm, all the way through to the Spring Garden Industrial Estate. I think that's the one you're referring to, probably amongst others. But just to let you know, we are in the process of commencing the pre-construction works. And when I say pre-construction works, having the survey going, taking the levels to ensure. We also have to explore whether there are any challenges in respect of the boundaries, but I will ask Mr. Yeager to speak to that matter very shortly. The ministry recognizes your thanks for the roadworks at Goodland. Certainly going around the cemetery, that obviously was in very, very poor shape. We responded and responded well. We had to correct a hydrant that was leaking there, and the Barbados Water Authority fixed that challenge. And I can say to all Barbadians who traverse that road that it's a wonderful stretch, and I'm happy that your residents and your constituents are very happy. In respect of the incomplete Deacons Road, I'm not sure the length of what is required there, but I will certainly speak with the technical team within the ministry, and I will seek to address that for you within the coming financial year, and you have my word on that for sure. In respect of road humps, we have to take this very seriously. There's a process within the ministry that we have to follow, but I'm also mindful of the fact that as we execute major road works across Barbados, that we are receiving complaints that in particular there's cyclists and motorists who are traveling at excessive speeds, and we are going to address the issue in respect of road humps when we construct roads. So I give you that undertaking. And then there's some other areas that we're going to focus on, that we have to focus on. What I would like to do at this stage is to invite Mr. Charles Yeard of the Drainage Division to give you an update in respect of some of the concerns you raised with respect to cleaning and also the proposed box drain. Mr. Yeard.
Charles Yeard, Drainage Division, and Minister of Water Resources and Transport Works and Water Resources. Yes, we had visited the site with the representative during flooding last year, and the drainage business undertaken to conduct surveying work and pre-construction work, as the minister said, for planning the works. We have not been able, because of the lockdown, to continue right through. This is drained from Solo, north of Solo drain, to Spring Garden via Deacons, and it drained us across Deacons Road. We have identified the sites, but one of the concerns we have there is land ownership. It is immediately north and hugs the Psychiatric North Hospital site. So will maybe have some delays in terms of acquisitions. But you did say, Minister, that you will speak to residences and get some permissions for access through the alignment of the drain. So we're not in a position to start this year because we don't have money allocated in our vote for it. But sure, in terms of shelf ready for the next financial period, 2022-23, unless we go for supplementary and have that work done.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. James South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to congratulate the ministry, the minister and his team, as well as the former minister, for the work that they're doing and the hope that they're bringing to many residents and constituents who desperately need their services to help make their lives better. One of the areas that would be of concern is the issue of transport. In St. James South, I have a number of communities that have some older people who who no longer drive or don't have access to a vehicle, and they now have to catch the bus. And we don't have as regular a service as we need, and how buses run are not convenient to help Barbadians do their business well. Very often you have to catch two buses to get where you need to go. So I know that I did hear that the Ministry of Transport and Works had plans, and I was very happy to hear Ms. Holder share what are some of the additional features that they have put on the buses. But I wanted to ask if she could share what are some of the plans for reorganizing the way in which buses run so that Barbadians can get to places more conveniently without having to go to town first to get another bus to go almost as far back up as you've come. And I know you could appreciate that,
Yes.
Madam Chairperson, trying to get from the polyclinic in St. John over to...
That was one of my issues that I brought up with the ministry too.
Yes.
And when you're finished, I will tag along behind you.
And we certainly have that problem in St. James South. So I would like to know if plans are in place and how far along you are at the moment in reorganizing the flow of how buses run so that Barbados works more efficiently.
Added to that, before you asked the minister, I had spoken to, I think it was the CEO, a very nice gentleman with respect to the bus routes. I want to say thank you for restarting the bus route going into Well House. However, as the honorable member just mentioned, we are having issues with the cross country. The Ministry of Health has seen it fit to open the St. John Polyclinic for 24 hours. But in order to get, for instance, from my house, if I were to catch a bus, it would take me maybe 20 to get from Sanford to, say, the beginning of St. John. It could take me 15 minutes to walk. To get from that to that same area from my house is 2 buses. And I don't find that to be efficient. What's the plans for making that a bit better, as the honorable member just mentioned?
Thank you both. We have conceptualized some additional plans for the Transport Board, including transfer stations and the like. What I would like to do is to ask the Chief Executive Officer of the Transport Board, Mr. Fabian Wharton, to address those matters. Mr. Wharton.
Thank you, Minister. Good afternoon, honorable members. My name is Fabian Wharton, CEO of the Transport Board. It is correct that there are some challenges with linking commuters from one end of the island onto the next end of the island. So, for example, from St. Lucie to St. Philip, or in the same parish to traverse, let's say, from in 6 roads over to St. John's Polyclinic, and those kind of things. What we had done, especially as it relates to the St. John's Polyclinic issue, we would have went up there with the team, myself, Mrs. Holder, and the operations manager. We would have created what we call an Eastern Circle, which goes through the parish of St. Philip, parts of St. John, circles by the Polyclinic, and comes right the way around back to 6 roads in a circle. So we are creating what we call circles and sending that information up. I know there were some queries with the 2 circles that we presented to you as it relates to one of the link roads missing. And we have made some changes to that as well. So those 2 designs are completed, and we are in the process now of looking at when we are going to start those. There's also a Bathsheba to Gore Hill as well for the St. John Polyclinic extended opening hours. That goes from Bathsheba, St. Elizabeth Village, Horsell, Chamber Rosa, from my memory. Then it comes around like Todd Corner, Erie Hill, and then it goes through like, that's Roach Village, it's called Roach Village, Sweetvale, and that circle, which will allow persons in St. Joseph to get to the Gore Hill David Thompson complex as well. And that service we have tentatively put to start at 7:15 a.m. from Bathsheba on a Sunday to Saturday and run every 2 hours. So we are developing these circles. We also have the Southern Circle that we put back in as well, which goes right through from Oistins, starts at Oistins, and it goes throughout the southern part of the island, Thornbury Hill, Pilgrim Road, passes the airport, then goes through Curtains, Mangrove Depot, as well as St. Patrick's, Fairview, Coverley, Leadville, and then it circles all the way around, goes through Vauxhall, Sheraton, comes across the ABC Highway, Top Rock Roundabout, Maxwell, and back to Oistins. So we do recognize that in an environment where persons need to commute more quickly, especially given that if we reduce commute times, we also improve productivity in the entire economy. So we are looking at this extensively. We have also made some adjustments to our ABC connection, which takes persons from Hotown all the way up to Bailey's Primary School, just here by Bailey's Primary School as a turnaround point. So that gives a connection all the way from the west coast into the east of the island right up to Bailey's Primary School. So these are the things that we're continuing to do. And what we do, we take a lot of this information from the members and from the public. We get calls and we take that information, we go and we drive the routes and see what is the best way to design it. And there's another one like the Oistins via Churchill to Bridgetown, which allows persons who want to get in that area, like in Kingsland Main Road from Oistins, there's no buses really to take them there. So that's another one that we're looking at as well. And then we also introduce things like the Mount Brereton via Orange Hill and these other services based on the feedback that we would have received from the public and as well as concerns raised by members of Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That gives me hope that we'll have something for St. James South and connecting our people easily with Warrens and other places. I want to thank you for the roads that you have identified that you are going to do for us in St. James South. I have the assurance from the Minister they were going to start them in January, but obviously COVID made it impossible, so I'm trusting that now we are easing out of lockdown, that those plans will come back into place to deal with the roads at Husbands, which is in extremely bad repair. It's one of the worst roads in my constituency, and that needs to be done. Endurance as well, and Halls Village. However, you have a big road that I understand will cost significant sums to do, which is the Prior Park Road. It is awful, bandy, unsafe, not lighted properly. And to add to the concerns of the constituents of Prior Park is the fact that the water mains there are so badly rusted, they get brown water coming out most of the time. And that is an issue. I'm hoping that you will be able to fix that road and deal with the mains at the same time, as well as sort out the low water pressures that the adjacent village, Halls Village, is now experiencing for over a year. That is affecting residents to be able to get ready for work, take care of elderly relatives who can't move and bathe themselves. It really is an issue. They've been extremely patient, but we do need that to be prioritized. One of the things that we would ask, and this was another ask by the Prior Park residents, is we are all very interested in exercise and keeping healthy. And we have requested that when you're doing the main road coming from Westmoreland and over by the Honourable Member for St. James North, that Midway Road, that when you're coming down, that you continue to extend the 3-foot wide pavement, that it would continue all the way down to the Warrens intersection, and then put one going through the same Prior Park Road and come around by Queen's College to meet back with the 3-foot wide pavement that ends there by the traffic light. They have asked for this because it makes a complete circuit that is safer for them to run on, and it would encourage more people. It is a safer route for them to do early morning exercise, and they really would appreciate if that could be accommodated when you're actually bringing the road down. Thank you. I'll wait to hear what your responses are.
Thank you very much. In respect of Prior Park, that road, we have that on the list of what we refer to as the calf roads. We will obviously address the issue of the sidewalk. Obviously, these things, we have to be mindful of the costs, but taking into consideration when we can do a package, that is sidewalk as well as changing out mains, we will do that as required and as needed. So I will give you that assurance. In respect of the brown water, that's part of what Dr. Mwanza would have informed members about not so long ago. That is within that the Prior Park issue with the brown water. That's within the same Bagatelle loop that we intend to address. In respect of the roads in St. James, yes, we were going to commence work of those in January. The new date for those roads to start will be next week. I believe it's on Monday that we start. We did have a setback, and you're quite right, but we are going to come through and follow through on our commitment to execute those roadworks there. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Philip West.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First, let me thank the Minister and the Ministry for the work that they've been doing, especially in the constituency of St. Philip West. But there are a number of things, and forgive me if I may sound like a little bit antsy on these, but I've been coming to estimates almost every year now, asking about the same things. One is the flood-prone areas within my constituency. It is well known, and I'm sure that for those people who live up there and around the country, Lowlands, Oldbury, and the Foursquare Woodburn areas are always subject to flooding. And it is, in my mind, interesting that when we had the issue on the South Coast, the then minister, who happened to be the representative also for the area at the time, was touting all of these things about injection wells and all of these solutions that they were looking for, based on the fact that this was a tourist belt. Now, the truth is, a tourist can come to Barbados. If he or she doesn't like it, they can get on a plane and leave. The people who live in St. Philip West do not have anywhere else to go. And we have been at this now for a number of years. And I know that Mr. Yearwood and some of his team have been out, but I'm a little bit concerned, and forgive me if I heard you wrong, please correct me, but one of the members before me asked about drainage, and I thought I heard that there was not a lot of money or anything put in place for that in this financial year. Now, we are going to be going into a rainy season very soon, and the problems in those areas, if not at least given some urgent attention, can end up with the loss of life. Last year, we had a situation where a senior citizen had to be rescued by the fire service in the Woodburn area. Now, we are talking about people's lives. This is not about politics. This is not about me as a representative. None of those things. This is about people's lives. And I think that the time has come. I've been very silent on this for now. Very nice. But I think now is the time where we have to get serious about this particular issue. So I'm putting that on the table early o'clock. The second thing is signage. Signage within not only my constituency, but all across the island needs some urgent attention. If I were a tourist in Barbados, I don't know how I would get it from one place to the next, because the signage is poor. And it has been like this for a very, very long time, and there seems to be no real urgency in being able to address that particular issue. On the matter of the flooding also, I have to go back there. It is disgraceful in front of my own constituency office that I have been asking, pleading, writing letters, doing whatever I need to do to have some help again in mitigating the area for flooding and also for lighting, which again is another problem within the constituencies that I don't think many people talk too much about. But those are just three of the major issues that I have to deal with. And I remember 2 years ago, just like the member for St. Philip North, I spoke about Breezy Hill as being a place that has one entrance and one exit. And if there is ever any sort of a catastrophe in that area, again, we are going to be dealing with loss of life. And I understand the constraints and all the other things, but I think these matters are of such importance that even if we can start to do small things to mitigate these problems, it would help. But Minister, like I said at the beginning, I do appreciate the work that that you and the ministry have been doing, and the former minister, but these things are pressing, and I think they really need some urgent attention, and I'd like to hear from you and your team when some action is going to be taken. I really don't want to hear about we are considering or we are thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you, honourable member. Let me tell you that we have some funds available in this financial year that we're hoping to execute and complete some projects, and I'll update you shortly. And then I'll also ask Mr. Charles Yearwood of the Drainage Division to reinforce some of the points as well. In respect of flood mitigation measures, I must tell you that on a weekly basis I meet with Mr. Charles Yearwood of the Drainage Unit, and we go through the plans for drainage to ensure that the ministry's program is being executed. Mr. Yearwood provides the ministry, the permanent secretary in first instance that comes to me, with lists of wells, a status of wells report, as well as a second report that he and his team worked on. I must congratulate them for the work they did on that and those documents. Flood mitigation measures to recharge the aquifer in Barbados. I'm delighted to let you know, honourable member, that we've started the Woodburn Southwest, where we're going to have a detention pond there. I'll let Mr. Yearwood speak to the percentage completion. At Burling Road, Woodburn, we've completed the retention pond. That's 155 meter long by 5 meter times 2 meters deep water course, and clear below the existing road levels. And of course, we have completed the road there at Burling Road for the residents. In respect of the Warren, that's the water course within the east boundary of the Gordon Waters Primary School, which cuts across into your area. There's a potential a retention pond, and as I speak to you, we've completed 75% of the works there. Those are just some that I thought I would mention, but I can tell you that I'm on top of this, and on a weekly basis, like I said, we have the drainage unit leader meeting with us in the ministry, giving us updates on the status of wells and the measures that we're taking to recharge the aquifer. I can show you this document anytime, and I get this on a weekly basis from the drainage unit. In respect of signage, the ministry will be executing a signage and street infrastructure program that I alluded to earlier in my opening remarks, and that will continue. With respect to street lights, what I would recommend is that you send a letter, and when we're sending this applies to all members of Parliament, and when you send a letter, simply identify the pole number that you would like us to install a street light. So address the letter to the permanent secretary, which is a standard, include location and the pole number, and I can assure you that I have a very competent permanent secretary who will stay on top of these matters, and if you copy me, of course I will respond, and I will also follow up because we have a weekly utilities meeting, so I will ensure that that's done. In respect of the Breezy Hill one entrance, one exit, what I will do when we return to the ministry, I will review that matter and I will come back to you. And I know that you've spoken to me in respect of Cottage Vale, and that is another road that we have, I believe, within the CAF program to execute. We're going to execute that when we commence all these works that I alluded to in the next financial year. But I'll ask Mr. Charles Yearwood of the Drainage Unit to provide you with a further update. Mr. Yearwood.
Yes, I heard the passion of Minister John King. We visited last tour about within last month. The ministry for some time had focus on wells, and we recognized for some time that wells are not most efficient for reducing flooding on the roadways, in that the wells have an infiltration capacity, and we went for other options that will increase or decrease the flood risk. Minister John King, I think the minister said to you the works we are undertaking. We have taken decision, and yes, like I explained in the tour, or on the tour rather, that Woodbourne, Berlin Road, and Waldron's is one of the priority ones in that the kind of floodplain we have after heavy rains. So I have to report that those are the works. If they had the same level of flooding we had the last time, we probably reduce flooding about 50%. We have monies available, and you'll see in the estimates for retention ponds, and we will continue to do works there and across the other parts of Barbados based on a priority. In terms of the well program, we have wells undertaken, I think at Cottage Vale, I don't remember the sites, but the number of sites, a couple of sites within your constituency. But again, we have a well contract, and we have monies again allocated well contract, and we'll continue to do works in your constituency across Barbados as well.
Thank you. We now have 10 more minutes. Continue with the Honourable Member for Christchurch East. It's not even two.
I give it a minute support. I give it a minute support.
Both of you will get to speak.
Minister, I want to thank you for your presentation, and I know that things are very difficult because of the mammoth undertakings by your ministry in what is perhaps the most difficult financial time that we've been through. And there's a lot of pressure on you to deliver. To that end, as I said, I want to thank you and commend you and your team, your board, your previous board, for the hard work that you've done, especially in putting the Barbados Water Authority where it is, and also in kickstarting the development programs for the Ministry of Transport and Work. So I just want to be a little bit more parochial in my question. I know that we have a series of roads that were scheduled to have been started. I know the reasons why the roads have not been started, and I trust that in the fullness of time we will get the promised roads, so I won't dwell on them. But my concern right now is the persons in the Ferry Valley and Time Bottom area who are suffering in a major way from the damaged road occasioned by the repair works to the runway at the Grantley Adams International Airport. The road was treacherous. I see that some interim remedial action was actually taken to address the issue, but that has almost made it a little bit worse. I just want to know what is the plan for there. There's some suggestion that the road should just be scraped and wet down periodically. Right now I know the residents are actually complaining for a lot of dust into their homes. It is a major issue, and I would like to know what you're doing, or what is the plan to alleviate the distress that they're facing. And if I can urge you to reach out every once in a while to let them know as to where we are, the progress, the expected time for completion, any challenges you may have, and also just to hear from the residents. Let somebody drive through there periodically to hear from the residents so that we can address the immediate concerns they have with respect to their standard of living. Out there is a mess, and it is very difficult conditions for people to live in. I know that the works are necessary. They are critically necessary and necessary for completion before we properly open back up our airport and we get going in a post-COVID environment. But having said that, although they're necessary, the concerns of the residents for the effects and impacts that they're feeling cannot be ignored, and I would like to know what is the plan to address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And of course, let me also thank you for all the work you did at the Barbados Water Authority prior to assuming your new ministerial position. In respect of the Ferry Valley Road, I can confirm that it is on the ministry's list of roads to be completed in the new financial year. You are quite right that the road suffered significantly as a result of the works that had to be undertaken at the Grantley Adams Highway, because that was a major thoroughfare for the trucks and all other heavy-duty equipment. Indeed, the Permanent Secretary brought the matter to my attention because he traverses that area every day, and also Mr. Philip Tudor, who's the Deputy Chief Technical Officer. So I give you the commitment and I give the residents of Fairy Valley the undertaking that the road has been earmarked for completion in the next financial year. We have had preliminary estimates of the road. It's going to cost us $1.2 million to repair that road, to reconstruct it, and that we will do what we can do. Now, in respect of the area where we did some, minor rehabilitative works in order to actually bring a sense of to reduce the difficulty, I should say, of especially of motorists traversing the area. We are going to do some minor stuff, not major, because like I said, we have to do reconstruct the road there. But you have our commitment that the road will be executed in the next financial year, and it's like I said, $1.2 million.
The other part of my question is relating to the water issues in the Gibbons area. Can you provide some update as to what the problem has been identified as and what is being done to deal with it, and when the residents in the Gibbons Brow area and those Platinum Heights, those affected areas, can expect to get some relief?
Thank you for the question, Honorable Member. The issues or the problems that you're having at the Gibbons area is one in relation to elevation. Now, that particular area is being fed from the Providence system, and the recommendations from the team at the BWA is to connect this particular area to Rising Sun. And if we connect to the Rising Sun area, because of the higher elevation, it will provide solutions to what is happening at your particular location. Now, the reality is that we are experiencing an issue as it relates to resources. We need to have another team or two in place at the BWA that will help to alleviate and solve some of the issues pertaining to your particular area. But again, the major issue there is one of elevation. The fact that the Gibbons area is so close in elevation to the Providence system that in peak times they will be getting the supply kind of last. So what is happening is the proposal is to move from Providence to Rising Sun. But I will ask Dr. John to explain the more technical stuff for you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Abrams. I don't think I can add much to what the minister has explained, because essentially you have a situation where the reservoir that is supplying the area is at about the same elevation as the area that is supplying. So the static head, since it's not a pumped system, will be a problem. And the solution that has been proposed is to connect that to a higher reservoir. And the initial planning has been done. We have conducted a route survey to determine which area the pipe would have to go through. So that work will start as soon as we have the additional resources that the minister talked about.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too will wish to add the warm sentiments to the Honourable Minister and his team, and indeed the previous Minister, who would have made some strides to ensure that the development of Barbados gets back on track after so many lost years of the neglect, particularly the constituencies that were represented by the Barbados Labour Party. We are now seeing some inroads that are helping us to be able to treat to our citizens and others in a better way. And my first concerns are to do with the distinguished constituency of St. Thomas. That is an integral part of the Scotland district where we are prone to slippage, and we do have areas of slippage, particularly Bloomsbury, Chapman's Village, Carrington's Village, Kingfield, Ericott, and the list goes on. I want to indicate that there has been serious degradation of the major road networks, and the impact of the drainage systems on those roads, which have got the residents extremely touchy. But I acknowledge that COVID-19 has really taken a dent in our economy, and therefore I'm not complaining. I'm just asking, as the year goes by and we see improvements in the economy and so on, that we will get our slice of the cake in having those areas upgraded to the best of our capacity. However, as long as we can open the tourism again, there are about 10 places of attractions in the parish, and none of the roads leading to any of those attractions is good. And therefore, it would mean some kind of rehabilitative effort from the Ministry of Public Works to be able to assist in having them in a condition, because one of the very prominent tourism aspects of the project, meaning the buses and the tour guides and so, one of the leading ones has asked that their vehicles don't go anywhere near Canefield to be able to get to the Highland Outdoor Tours or to Welch Mahal Gully and those areas, and that was before COVID kicked in. And therefore, I want to find out from the Honourable Minister and his team what plans there are for the link roads, particularly Carrington's Village, Aricot, Canefield, and those others that will link up, especially Bloomsbury, that has always been slipping in a very serious way. And that would be my first query, please.
Thank you, Minister. I can confirm to you that Carrington's, that is in the CAF, the Complant Road Network that we are proposing to fix, and the area of the Sturgis junctions to Flower Forest, that is also on the ministry's agenda. I have the list in front of me, but I will just let you know that yes, we have those, and then we have Highway 2 going to Vaucluse. That's also, like I said, the Carrington Village, St. Thomas area, which is Welch Mahal, going to Bloomsbury Tenantry. That's under the Complant program. And then we also have a number of roads that we've identified for the good people of St. Thomas under our CAF roads program. I can tell you, for example, I think it's Bridgefield and Content, Bridgefield, Content, to name a few. We have those on our list. Hangman's Hill as well, as I've been advised. We have those on our list for you and the people of St. Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I trust that Shopville is in it as well, because that road that leads to the Mangrove landfill and the SBRC and so, that is a roller coaster road. It really is in need of good repairs. But as I said, I'm not going to be in any way disrespectful or anything. I just want to get word, because the questions are coming and the emails and all that, as you will appreciate. And it has been for many years that we have not had any assistance. My other question is associated with what arrangements has the government got with utility companies, not only the ones under the government's watch, but indeed those utility companies like the light and power and so on. I find that over the past 2 years, we have had some challenges. There are major roads, and the Honourable Minister Griffith knows of what I speak. The one over in Farm Path leading from Mount Hillaby, until a Sunday evening, one man's car broke off, the tire broke off just about 2 months ago. Nothing had happened, and it means that the government now will incur additional costs to repair his car, as well as to have that road that was dug up by the Water Authority dealt with. Dunscombe is a massive area, heavy traffic, and I've been trying for the last 3 months to be able to get 3 cans in the middle of the road. Are we going to wait until somebody dies? So I want to find out what synergies there are with government and the utility companies to be able to make sure that as long as a project is completed, the government is made aware, because I expect that the private utility companies will pay for whatever they have done to impact on the road and its conditions. I would like to have that idea. And my final question, ma'am, and I know the interest of time is really very important, is associated with learner drivers and of course their trainers, and what is happening particularly with what we call jam busting, excuse me, when every day, as long as you get to the junction by the roundabout to Simpson Motors, near to Saul, people take that hard left lane that should take them down to, what's the hill called? To take you to the traffic lights of the university, Heinz Hill. And then they make that curve to go to Redmonds Village. And there are accidents waiting to happen there. I would want to find out what plans the government has, I mean in the Ministry of Public Works, to be able to put some formal training programs and some announcements in the radio, and so giving diagrams and all that. With the technology we have, we can do it so that learners know what to expect, and the older folks like me who may not be so familiar, that to do it every day, get an understanding, because it is really going to lead to the loss of life and limb and so on. And of course, people are not paying attention to flashing lights. People are coming through red lights. And there's so many things that are happening. I believe that a public education project should be in the making, and I believe with the Honorable Minister and his youthfulness and usefulness that he will be able to give us some word on it, because every minute we are seeing serious accidents that really should not happen if people are driving defensively and not offensively, as we see every day.
Thank you,
and I would just put
Member.
that in a nutshell. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Just to let you know as well, that Shop Hill is also included in the CAF program road list. In respect of the utilities, the Barbados Water Authority is now under one ministry, and that's our ministry. They're very much part of this ministry, and we have had discussions with respect to the reinstatement of roads. We have agreed a policy. Under my watch, we agreed a policy, and we are going to ensure that that policy is executed. And they're all here listening to you, Honourable Member for St. Thomas, and I'm sure that they will get that Dunscombe Road sorted, and I've made a note myself to ensure that that road is is reinstated in the shortest possible time. We also have a challenge, even though you didn't mention it, with this concrete ready mix spilling on the roadways of Barbados. Last year I met with the suppliers of ready mix concrete, and I had a discussion with them. They had agreed that if there was a spillage that they would then clean it up. That has not happened. I intend to meet with them within the next 2 weeks to remind them of our discussions, and feeling that we will have to address some issues. You may be aware that we are also undertaking a major revision to our Road Traffic Act. We are planning to have a new road traffic bill, and we intend to address that along with other matters of safety and so on in respect of road traffic obligations. So in respect of the learner drivers and other drivers on the road, what we are going to do to address that matter is to ensure that we have the PSA, the public service announcements, done in respect of road safety. And in fact, only this week, last Monday's management meeting, we had a discussion in respect of road safety, and we are going to pilot some new PSAs in respect of road safety.
Thank you. Minister, please give your wrap-up and ask that the head be moved.
All right. Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank officials of the Ministry of Transport Works and Water Resources for providing members of Parliament with answers and explanations. I found the session to be very useful. This is obviously my first estimates, leading an estimates debate on behalf of a ministry. I want to tell members that we've listened to you and listened to the concerns of your constituents. We are aware that there are multiple requests that come from you as members, and your requests come in the name of the constituents who you represent. And I want to assure you that the Ministry of Transport Works and Water Resources will be working around the clock to ensure that we address as many concerns. We won't be able to solve all the concerns in one financial year, but we're going to make good, steady progress because we have to do what we have to do. Like I said earlier, this country has suffered an infrastructural imbalance, and as a result of that, it falls to this government now to have to pick up the reins and have to move with alacrity with an aggressive public works, public sector investment program to ensure that we do what is right for this country to maintain the quality of our infrastructure. Water, roads and drainage, those are the priorities of the ministry, and we will ensure that we do what we have to do. Execution, therefore, becomes the top priority for the ministry, and I want to assure all that we will be working around the clock to execute on behalf of the people of Barbados. And with those remarks, I want to thank you, Madam Chair. I therefore beg that Head 81 stand par.
Question is that Head 81 in the amount of $110,164,376 stand par. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that you do not report his under the Speaker progress and beg leave to sit again.
Question is that I do not report his honour the Speaker progress. I'm asked for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman has reported progress and requested leave to sit again. Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, at this juncture, we ask that the sitting be suspended until Friday morning at 10, at which time we will do the head for the Ministry of Health, possibly one other, but for the moment, the Ministry of Health, and then we will end this particular set of debate. So I beg to move that this House do now be suspended until Friday, 19th of March, 10 a.m.
The question is that this Honourable Chairman be suspended until Friday, the 19th day of March at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. This Honourable Chamber stands suspended until Friday, the 19th day of March at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.